You never had like a lumbar surgery or anything like that, did you?
No, no
Fusion or-
surgery.
In Spokane, Washington. With each turn and twist,
Still more painful going to that left side, right?
Yeah.
Air National Guard pilot Mitch Hall is trying to inch his way back into the cockpit. For 2 decades, Hall climbed into planes serving our country on overseas missions, tracking drug smugglers, mapping forest fires, and even teaching other pilots. But he hasn't been in the air for more than a year. That's because in 2023, he got hurt. What happened to your shoulder?
I was in uniform on active duty orders at the military gym being tested for physical fitness and had a shoulder injury.
His recovery required therapy, and when Hall filed his claim with the military to cover the treatment, his local commanders gave their initial approval. But when his paperwork was sent to the National Guard Bureau headquarters in Virginia, that decision was overturned. When you got your paperwork back and you were denied, what went through your mind?
I kind of laughed, actually, believe it or not, and I laughed out of frustration.
Our Scripps News investigation uncovered cases like Hall's across the country where injured and sick Air National Guard members have filed claims for medical care and pay that get approved by local commanders, then denied by national headquarters. We learned those decisions hinge on what's known in the military as a line of duty determination, also called an LOD, which confirms that an injury was sustained on military time or made worse by military service. In either of those cases, the National Guard is obligated to cover the claim, but that's not what happened to Mitch Hall.
It couldn't have been any more in the line of duty, but someone at some faraway location decided to non-concur with all of my leadership and supervisors.
On top of that, Hall told us the injury was rooted in an accident that took place 4 years earlier when his pickup truck rolled over on him. You were basically crushed.
Yeah. The actual pressure being squeezed that hard did some eye trauma, so both of my eyes actually kind of blacked out.
At the time, the military agreed that injury was sustained in the line of duty, but now it claims it shouldn't have to pay for the latest shoulder injury, even though no one disputes it's tied to the earlier accident.
It's either incompetency, apathy, or corruption. You kind of feel abandoned.
Another member of Hall's unit, Lieutenant Colonel Rich Cullen, feels the same way. He's had 7 medical claims overturned by headquarters, all because they said his injuries weren't sustained in the line of duty. It was happening so often that the 2 airmen started comparing notes.
We just had a sense that this wasn't right. What we were facing wasn't right.
Because when you got ill and you got hurt, your expectation was?
I was going to be cared for.
As Cullen and Hall started examining more of their denials from headquarters, certain repeated words jumped out at them. Injuries and illnesses were described as degenerative or as a chronic condition, which the documents would say clearly predates this period of service. Again and again, the National Guard concluded the airmen's medical conditions were the result of natural progression of long-standing injuries or illnesses, and their current military duties didn't make the conditions worse. That was a regular theme in the written denials we examined from around the country. In Mississippi, Master Sergeant James Buckley filed 3 claims, all approved by his local unit as having been sustained in the line of duty, and then later denied by headquarters. Their explanation? The natural progression of problems that pre-existed this period of service. In Phoenix, Major Christine Jornis had to stop flying when an illness she first experienced in pilot training was aggravated a decade later. Her claim was considered a natural progression and was denied. And in Nashville, an Air National Guard captain needed spine surgery. It was approved locally as a service-aggravated injury, but headquarters rejected that, writing off his condition as a natural progression of the disease. Air National Guard officials would not agree to an on-camera interview with Scripps News, but officials familiar with the process did say they approach every case with a presumption that it merits coverage. But to do that, they say they need to determine that a pre-existing condition suddenly worsened and is not simply the result of everyday living.
The standard to determine not in the line of duty is clear and unmistakable evidence. It's an extremely high standard.
Jeremy Sorensen has been tracking line of duty denials for years for US JAG, a nonprofit group that represents injured service members. He says many of the recent denials we've examined are due to a change in how these claims are being processed. Until last year, he told us the vast majority of claims were not reviewed by anyone at headquarters, and that decision was left to local bases. But a new policy came into effect last spring and now requires all claims nationwide to be submitted to headquarters for an extra layer of scrutiny. That extra layer involves 4 people at headquarters, including a medical reviewer. None of them has ever treated or spoken directly to the service members about their conditions, but now they have the power to overturn local recommendations.
What's that mean for the service members?
Their medical care is not covered by the U.S. government. Their paycheck is taken away from them. Their ability to feed their families is taken away from them.
National Guard officials told Scripps News they expected to make the process more effective and efficient and to ensure accuracy. But the changes also resulted in an increase in denials. Since November, the Air National Guard says it's overturned more than 20% of claims that have been approved by local commanders. That's 146 cases where service members have been denied medical care and benefits. We've been talking to Sorensen about the impact of the new policy for months.
You seem more resolute and fired up and a little angry about it than you have been before. Why?
Because I'm seeing this grow bigger and bigger, and I'm seeing an abject failure of the DoD leadership to engage and correct these matters or to hold anybody accountable.
Since this past February, Scripps News has been asking the military about complaints from airmen related to this new policy. Now we've learned that the Air Force Inspector General is taking action to accelerate resolution of many of these disputed medical claims, and they're also putting a fresh set of eyes on other claims to determine if errors were present in those original medical decisions.
Ready?
Mitch Hall does not know if his shoulder injury claim will get another look, but he hopes everyone gets resolution.
I hope there are enough people in high places that see the situation and put themselves in the shoes of those that have been on the receiving end of it. And he's the one that told me the house was gone.
Hall's battle over military benefits is not the only challenge he's faced in the past year. A wildfire swept through his entire neighborhood last summer. Now, as he tries to rebuild his home, he tells us the denial by the National Guard has robbed him of his medical coverage and pay for weeks.
I'm broken, repairable, hopefully, but broken, but I'm getting no support for that while we're trying to rebuild our lives.
Why should the average American care about how this is turning out for you?
I believe in my soul that if the average American knew about this process failing, they would be pretty enraged.
He says there's still time for the Air National Guard to do its own kind of rebuilding, so it can better support service members who have dedicated their lives and their bodies to the needs of this country.